Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today. For this one, we are going to take a look at yet another Japanese sake for you here on the channel. And as I've told you before, I'm by no means an expert when it comes to Japanese sake. I just really enjoy them, and I like doing something a little bit different for you guys here on the channel. So we'll need to see how we get on with this one. But as I promised you back in the summer, we're going to continue on with this journey that I was doing around Kyushu Island, which is the southernmost of the four big home islands of Japan. So there's 7 prefectures down there, and as I've told you, I have a project to review one sake from each of the 47 prefectures throughout Japan, and I thought I would start that off by reviewing ones from each of the Kyushu prefectures during the summer. So we've done 4 of them so far. We've done a sake from Fukuoka, we've done one from Kumamoto, one from Oita, and one from Miyazaki. This time it's time to move on to Kagoshima prefecture, and then we'll do Nagasaki and Saga a little bit later on. So for the Kagoshima sake then, we're going to have a look at my first ever sake from Kinzangura kabushikikaisha. This one comes from their Sashumasamune range, and this particular sake is the Junmaishu, which comes in at 15% ABV. It's a Junmai Seishu. Junmai means that it's pure rice, Seishu means that it's a clear transparent sake, and it has 70% milled rice grains. So obviously we mean there that the rice grain is milled down to 70% of its original size. But this is quite an interesting one because Ichiko and I had been talking at the time that we were in Kagoshima about what the Japanese name of our son should be, and I wanted Masamune because he was going to be named Douglas after James Douglas from Scotland, one of the great warriors of Scotland. So I suggested Masamune after Masamune Date, and we were looking for quite a while for a sake from Kagoshima. And it's quite difficult to find sake down in Kyushu because it's a very tropical climate, so it's mainly known for its shochu rather than sake, because you need lower temperatures to ferment sake and things like that. And then it turned out that one of the only sakes produced in Kagoshima prefecture was called Masamune, and so that kind of strengthened my argument a little bit, and there we go. Now we've got the Sashu Masamune sake to review for you here on the channel. But she also gave me this little glass, so this is the first time I'm reviewing a sake out of this glass. She got me this for my 28th birthday, and it's handmade and everything, so I thought this was a nice sake review to introduce this one to, and I'll be taking this glass with me back to Sweden to review sakes there as well. So a really nice little review, this one. Cool to have a sake named after my, well, the sake that my son is kind of named after in a way, I guess we should put it that way, and cool to review one from Kagoshima prefecture in Japan. Like I say, we're going to go around each of the prefectures, each of the 47 prefectures in Japan, so we're just kind of continuing on that journey, if you like. But really looking forward to trying this one, and as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this sake. So as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the sake. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Hamada Shuzo or Kinzangura kabushikikaisha, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Very first time I'm trying one of the sakes from their Sashumasamune range, and they do have 2 others that hopefully I can review for you at some point soon. But if you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for sake, whiskey, beer, whatever it is you're interested in, based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, all of those kind of things. There is a playlist there for all the different sakes that I've reviewed for you before. You can search for those based on geography, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers, whiskies and sakes and things like that that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Kinzangura kabushikikaisha and Hamada Shuzo then. Hamada Shuzo is the parent company of the Sashumasamune sake brand. So as I mentioned to you already, this brewery is part of the Hamada Shuzo company, which was established back in 1868, and they own 3 separate breweries. This is Kinzangura, which produced these sakes, the Debengura, and also the Denzoengura, all of which produce shochu. But like I say, Kinzangura are the ones that produce the Japanese sake, the Nihonshu. So the sake, as I mentioned, is produced at this brewery, and it's based in Ichikikushikino city, again if I've pronounced that correctly, which is out on the west coast of Kagoshima prefecture in Kyushu in the southern part of Japan. So this brewery are known for their ties to the Satsuma samurai clan, and also for having a large tunnel which was used to store the shochu to age. It's kind of the same idea that they had in Germany when they're aging beer, or in France when they're aging wine. And like I said to you earlier, sake wasn't commonly produced in Kyushu because of the high temperatures and the difficulty that they had with controlling the temperature for the brewing process. The fermentation process that goes on in sake, incidentally, is actually quite similar to beer. You need quite low temperatures for it, and basically you're adding, you know, yeast or little bacteria at different periods in time during the process. But these sakes are produced under the name Sashu, which is a reference to Satsuma, you know, the famous samurai, and they've now been produced for around 40 years. So I think it was the late 70s, early 1980s that they started producing these sakes. So the current brewmaster is Tori, and he apparently has a strong pedigree, having worked for other sake breweries around Japan. So they currently produce 3 sakes under the Kinzangura name. This is the Dai Ginjo, the Junmaishu, which is this one here, and also the Junmai Ginjo. So yeah, that was all the information I was really able to find out about this brewery. This one was particularly difficult to get information on, but you know, it's mainly, these guys are mainly, it's basically you've got a parent company, Hamada Shuzo, there's 3 separate shochu breweries under that, and then the Kinzangura shochu brewery also produce a few Japanese sakes as well. So yeah, kind of cool actually to find this one that was named after you know, Masamune Date as well actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the history just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, I'll put the brewery website down for you in the description below. You can follow the Hamada Shuzo company on Facebook. I think they've got Instagram as well, so I'll put that, I'll try and remember to put those in the description for you below. And if you are interested in the particular details of the sake, you can look at websites like Sake 101 and urbansake.com and things like that as well. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this sake then. So as I mentioned to you at the start of the video, this one is a 15% alcohol Junmai Seishu, which means Junmai means that it's pure rice, Seishu means that it's transparent, and you can kind of see through the bottle that this sake is transparent, and it contains 70% milled rice grains, and you can see the sort of samurai symbol down there as well. So these 2 kanji at the top mean Sashu, which is the reference to the Satsuma clan. And then these 2 here mean Masamune. As I've told you before on the channel, you have different kanjis can give you the same sounds. And this is actually the first kanji. This is the kanji that we used for Masa, for my son's name actually. So he has this one, but he doesn't have that one at the bottom actually. So yeah, quite cool actually. But this one is a little 300ml bottle. It comes in 15% alcohol, Junmai Seishu, like I said, and it is 70% rice grain, or milled down to 70% of its original size. There you can see the bottle cap on this one. I think that one says Kinzangura, if I'm remembering the kanjis correctly. As I've told you before, Japanese is a very, very fiddly and difficult language to learn. But you know, once you get a hold of it, it's quite easy to learn to speak, but it's the reading and the writing that will really kind of trip you up. But a really nicely presented sake, this one, and we'll get it out and into the glass then. So yeah, let's get on with this one. So as I've told you before, the things that we rate sake on, according to the experts, we rate it on impact, on the tail end, and we also rate it on floral character, fruitiness, earthiness, sweetness, dryness, and acidity. So we'll talk about all of those in this review, and I'll be filling in my notes on this one a little bit later on after we've tasted it. So yeah, let's get it out and into the glass then. I'm really curious to see how this one turns out, and like I say, this is the debut for the little sake glass that Michiko got me. So yeah, let's have a look at this. So as I've told you before, you get, usually with sakes, you'll get a little bit of a kind of tinge to the colour. They're normally pretty clear, apart from Nigoris obviously, which are unfiltered. This one definitely has a really kind of bright yellow tinge to it. Sometimes they can be a little bit turquoisey, sometimes they can be a little bit green, sometimes they can be a little bit blue, and sometimes a little bit yellow like this one. So as you can see, this one has a lovely kind of yellowy, maybe very slightly greeny tinge to it actually. I've never figured out with Japanese sakes whether the colour of the bottle has anything to do with the style. Sometimes they have brown glass, sometimes they've got clear glass, and sometimes they've got green glass, and usually brown glass protects better than green, which protects better than clear glass, and you know, it's all to do with keeping out the light. But I don't think you've got to care as much about light with sake as you do with beer. But yeah, a really nice kind of yellow tinge to this one. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see this sake is pretty much crystal clear, but definitely a bright yellow tinge to it. So let's take a look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Yeah, so again, this one comes across as quite smooth. You've got a nice little bit of a kind of sweetness to this. To me, the fruitiness comes out as very, very oily in this. You can pick out a little bit of acidity in there, and some of the earthiness. There is a little bit of earthiness just kind of underpinning this sake, actually. Oh, there you can hear Douglas Masamune talking to his mum. But yeah, this one, that smells really, really nice, actually. So a lovely kind of smoothness and sweetness to it. But at the same time, there's a little bit of earthiness in there. It's quite a smooth earthiness, incidentally. You can pick out a little bit of acidity. There's also some nice kind of citrusy notes coming out of this one. But I would say the fruity characters in this sake are a little bit more oily compared to some of the other ones that I've come across. There's a little bit of that kind of typical sort of gooseberry, almost peary note in this one. It's maybe got a little bit of a kind of... Is it a little bit like pineapple-y or lychee, something like that? There's a little touch of a tropical-y fruit to this one, but I would say it's kind of lychees, gooseberries, and a little bit of an almost like kind of papaya-ish note or something. There's a little touch of a tropical quality to this, but mainly it's gooseberries, lychees, and a little bit of that kind of typical peary ester in there. The ricey aspects of it are nice and smooth, and at the same time they're a little bit wheat. You can smell a little bit of the acidity at the front of the nose. It's got a little bit of floral character, that's mixing in with the acidity for me. And you've got a little touch of that kind of earthy note coming in at the back of the nose as well. Yeah, but mainly quite a smooth, sweet and oily aroma coming off this one, I have to say. That's the impressions that I have of this from the aroma. A lovely kind of sweet, smooth and oily sake, I have to say. I would say that the more you smell this one, the sweeter it becomes. You get a little bit more of the fruity oiliness out of it as well, which is great. But I also really like the way that the kind of floral and earthy notes and the acidity and things, I like how they're complementing everything as well. So this one, compared to other sakes that I've reviewed recently, this one comes across as being a little bit more kind of smooth. I mean, the one that I reviewed from Wakayama, that was very kind of floral and fresh. This one definitely comes across as being a little bit sweeter and more smooth in my opinion, actually. So yeah, really interesting to have a look at the aroma of this. So yeah, let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. So this one comes to you from Hamada Shuzo in Kagoshima Prefecture in Kyushu in the southern part of Japan, the southernmost of the 4 home islands. It's released by the Kinzangura Brewery from their Sashumasamune range, and this particular one is the Junmaishu, a 15% Junmaishu, pure rice, transparent sake with rice grains that are milled down to 70% of their original size. So let's get stuck into this one, the Sashumasamune Junmaishu. Slanje, skål, kampai. Oh yeah, that's really, really very nice. This is definitely one of the more smooth and oily sakes that I've come across recently. This one ticks a lot of boxes for me. I mean, regardless of whether it's craft beer or whether it's sake, I really appreciate sort of big oily flavours. I don't know, it just ticks the boxes for me. As I always tell you in these reviews, sakes and whiskies and beers and stuff like that, it's always really very subjective, but for me it's the oiliness that really kind of ticks a lot of the boxes for my personal palate in terms of the flavour. This is a beautiful sake. I'm going to say thumbs up to Kinzangura Brewery for this one, and Hamada Shuzo, whatever you call them. This is the confusing thing about Japan. You've got parent companies and you've got other breweries, and then you've got the brand that stuff's released under. It's quite confusing to do some of these Japanese beer and sake reviews for you, but they're very enjoyable, as I'm sure you can tell. But yeah, this is lovely. So let's talk about the impact of this sake first then. So when you take this one in, it really is lovely. I mean, it comes in very, very smooth and actually quite sweet. There's almost a little touch of sharpness to the sweetness, but then you can feel the sweetness just rolling across the middle of your palate there. And it's really nice how that goes together. I mean, the first impression of this sake is that it is really very smooth and very, very sweet, and it doesn't change very much the further that you go into the aftertaste with it either. It stays consistent with that. I really like that about this one. So a very smooth and rather sweet impact with this one. The middle of your palate, as I always say, you do tend to get the sweet ricey qualities in the middle of your palate, and that just kind of sits there. It's a very smooth and kind of oily ricey quality that comes out of this one, and that really sits in the middle of your palate there. It doesn't. Some of the sakes that I've had before have had a little bit of floral character coming out of the rice, but this one really comes across as very smooth and very oily. As I've told you before, one of the main variables when it comes to brewing sake and things is where exactly your rice comes from, because rice grown in different parts of Japan has different minerals taken from the soil and stuff like that. You've got different waters kind of sitting there with it as well, so all of that can really affect the different flavours that you get from the sake. But the ricey sweetness in this one is very, very smooth, and that lingers there as you go into the aftertaste as well. This is definitely, as I say, one of the smoother and more oily sakes that I've come across in recent times. This is really nice actually. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again, so maybe I need to see if I can mail order a few of the bigger bottles of this and see if I can get one of the other ones to review for you here on the channel. And it's interesting this, because like I say, Kyushu's not known for its sake, but this is a really very nice one actually. This, I definitely need to make sure I try some of the other ones in their range. So yeah, the fruity side of things then. So as I always say, the fruity esters in a sake or a beer or whatever will come out in that kind of oily bubble that you get behind the front curve of your tongue. So for me, this one comes across, it's very sort of gooseberry-like. There's definitely a little bit of lychee. There's almost a little touch of a kind of green grapey type quality to this one as well. It's really those very light, juicy kind of flavours there. I would definitely say gooseberries, and I'd definitely say a sort of white or green grapey kind of quality in this one, and that sort of lingers into the aftertaste as well. Like I say, it's a very oily fruit. There's maybe a little bit of a peary ester to this one as well, which is interesting. So quite juicy and full fruit flavours, but at the same time a little bit more kind of oily and things as well. So earthiness then. You do get a little bit of earthiness in the back corners of your palate, but compared to a lot of other sakes I've had, the earthiness in this one is really very mild. You just get a little bit of it there, and as you go further into the sake flavour it comes out a little bit more, but it really does sit back a little bit actually. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, that's where you get some of the floral qualities again, but there's a little bit of dryness to that. The floral qualities give you a little bit of a dryness to this particular sake, but I would say that the earthiness and the floral qualities are a lot less pronounced in this one compared to other ones that I've had before. Like I say, the main thing with this sake is the smoothness and the sweetness and the sort of oiliness that you get from that. I'd say this is more a fruity, an oily fruity and sweet smooth sake. That's where this one lands on the spectrum for me. So yeah, acidity with this one then. You do get a little bit of that on the front part of the palate, just between the back of the fruity note and the kind of front of the more sweet ricey notes. You do get a little bit of that kind of floral, well not floral, that sort of little bit of acidity there, and that does linger into the tail end of the sake. There is a little bit of dryness behind the fruity part of the sake there, but you do get some nice oiliness and juiciness out of this, and you also get the nice sweetness of the rice kind of backing that up as well. So the acidity is almost like quite well contained with this one in my mind. But yeah, I would definitely stick with what I said before about this one. It's a very sweet sake, it's very smooth, and it's got some really nice oily fruity characters to it as well actually. The tail end of this one then, the further that you go into the aftertaste with this one, I would say You get a little bit more dryness and earthiness out of it the further you go into the palate. That seems to be quite a standard thing with a lot of sakes. Around the front curve of the palate, incidentally, it's a little bit lighter and grassy as well. But again, I would say that the smoothness and the sweetness from the rice lingers there, and you've also got the oily, fruity characters just kind of sitting in there as well. So I really, compared to other sakes, this is definitely one of the more oily, fruity and smooth, sweet ones that you're going to come across. But I have to say, I think that Kinzangura have done a really nice job of this, and I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. I'd be very, if they can get a Junmaishu this smooth when it's only 70%, you know, rice, when it's only milled down to 70% of its original size, if you like, I'd be very curious to see what their daiginjo is like, because usually those are very, very smooth and, you know, even sweeter and a little bit more oily and things as well. So this is quite interesting. This is definitely one of the kind of smoother and oily, sweet Junmais that I've come across. And this one isn't even a ginjo. A ginjo is usually milled down to 60% of the original size. This one is just a seishu, basically. So yeah, this gets a thumbs up from me. I really quite like this one, actually. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the mouthfeel of this then. So overall, I would say that the mouthfeel of this one is really quite smooth. It's one of the more oily sakes that I've come across in recent times, and probably one of the more oily sort of Junmais that I've come across. And like I said, this one isn't even a ginjo. It's not milled down enough to be a ginjo, but so definitely one of the more oily seishu sakes that I've come across. It's very, very smooth. It's perhaps not the oiliest one that I've come across, but like I say, very oily within the specific category that it is. The dryness, the floral qualities and the earthiness are quite subdued on this one. It's a very smooth, sweet sake in the middle of your palate, but not at the sweetest end of the spectrum. Like I've told you before, the Japanese version of sweet is a lot more savoury than our version of sweet, and you've got some nice oily, fruity qualities in here as well. But overall, this is a beautiful seishu sake, or a Junmai seishu to give it its proper name, and I'm really glad that I was able to review this one for you. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. So this was review number 5 of 7 in our little Kyushu mini series. This one came to you from Kagoshima Prefecture. Next up in the Kyushu mini-series we have Nagasaki and then Saga Prefecture, and that will be us finished. But it's been really cool to review this one for you. Definitely cool to have a sake that bears my son's Japanese name as well. Cool to have one that bears the name of the great Masamune Date as well. So I really hope that you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. As I say, I'm by no means an expert. I just really enjoy them, and it's always cool to do something a little bit different for you guys here on the channel as well. So as always, let me know your own thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite sakes are from the Kinzangura Brewery or Hamada Shuzo, however you want to, you know, relate this particular sake. This is from their Sashumasamune range, of course. Let me know your own thoughts on these sakes. Give me some other Kyushu sake brewery recommendations as well, and hopefully we can try a few more from there after we finish this mini-series. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Make sure you check out my social media. Make sure you check out the Sashumasamune sakes. This one was the Junmaishu from the Sashumasamune range at Kinzangura Brewery, part of the Hamada Shuzo group in Kagoshima Prefecture on Kyushu Island, the southernmost of the 4 big home islands of Japan. Until the next time, slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. Slanja, skull, kampai. Make sure you try some of these Sashumasamune sakes. A lovely, big, oily Junmai seishu in my opinion. Cheers.